Headline is 3 years for $90 million, $65 million guaranteed. And the total guaranteed money about $107 million. Most ever for a wide receiver. So here's Tyreek's stats last year. He's second in receptions, first in deep bombs, first in receiving yards, and tied for first in touchdowns. Are we all buying Tyreek is the best non-quarterback in the NFL?
Look, let me say this about the list. I don't think it was a good list overall, and certainly disagree with the top. But I will give the players credit in that they did not give the quarterback position extra weight, clearly. All right, which I like, because we're talking about football players, and it's obviously hard because they all do so many different things. It's unlike basketball and baseball where they all do different things specifically because of their position. So I'll give them credit for that. And look, some people might say it could have been Myles Garrett because a lot of the argument against Tyreek might be, well, look at his team. I mean, they're good. They made the playoffs, but they don't make noise.
Yep.
Myles Garrett, team, okay, doesn't make a lot of noise. TJ Watt, great, but injured, injuries a little bit for TJ is an issue. Christian McCaffrey, I think you might say, well, he does, as great as he is, he's the best running back in the league. He benefits from all those weapons too, all right, with George Kittle and Ayuk and Debo and Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. So he's benefiting from his weapons. So I don't have a problem with Tyreek being number one. And I don't know if Nick's going to say he's not even the best receiver. He does drop more than some of the other top receivers. But his speed, he changes the game so much. And he is not just a deep threat. He's a guy that goes across the middle, that catches the little quick passes and slants and can take them to the house. He's great running after the catch. I got no issue with this. Outside of quarterbacks, I got no issue with Tyreek.
I don't think it's criminal. I don't think it's an awful take if someone thinks this. It's not what I believe. There's two guys that play either Tyreek's position or a similar one that I'd rather have. So it really depends on what the goal is. If your goal is to have a guy who is most likely to help you in the biggest moments, there is no player in the league, non-quarterback, that I would rather have than Travis Kelce, flatly. There is no player in the league that I think is more, and he is historically prolific in the postseason. Some of those numbers were before Patrick got there. Obviously, most of them are with Patrick, but he is, even in a year like last year, where he looked injured, old, and a step slow, he was unguardable the entire postseason, including against Kyle Hamilton in the AFC Championship game, against I don't know if it was, no one remembers, the Bills or the Dolphins game where he had the 11 catches on 11 targets. And then in the Super Bowl, he set up the game-tying field goal with the catch and run the fastest he was all year.
And with no great receivers.
Right, when everyone knows that's what you have to do exactly.
That's right.
And then, but if we're not just giving extra importance to playoffs, we're talking about who's the scariest or best receiver in the league. I think it's Justin Jefferson. I think Tyreek historically is obviously better than Justin because of what he's done so long. But Justin Jefferson has played 60 games. He has 5,900 yards. So he's 100 yards a game or 98 yards a game for his career. Obviously, he hasn't done it with terrible quarterbacks, but he hasn't had great quarterbacking ever. He's had basically league average quarterbacking.
Cousins puts up numbers.
But I think a lot of that has been because of Justin Jefferson. And last year, he didn't have the great quarterbacking. And what he doesn't have that Tyreek has had for the entirety of his time as a great player is another great player alongside him. Tyreek in Kansas City had Travis. Tyreek in Miami has Waddle. And great player for Waddle might be a touch strong, but a guy defenses really have to pay attention to. Everyone knows with Minnesota, if we stop Justin Jefferson, how are they going to beat us? And he still gets you 100 yards every game. And so the tweet or whatever, I love Tyreek Hill, the player, and I'm not taking a shot. I think Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in football, and I've thought that for a couple of years.
I just think Tyreek, and he has been great with three quarterbacks, and two of them we'll see how good two ends up being. Alex Smith. They're good, but not great other than Mahomes. But I just think his speed, and Jefferson's great, but Tyreek's speed is just such a difference maker that that's why I would take him. That's why I'll take him.
All right, coming in with the silver medal in the top 100 is the league's reigning MVP. He's the MVP, so he
having his best year, and Tyreek before December. So right when the players start to vote, he had 7 100-yard games. I think he was still on pace to break the all-time record. He had 120 yards a game is what he was averaging. And remember, in December, after December started, Tyreek had 1 100-yard receiving game. That's it. So I think if it's done after the year, it's a whole. Mahomes is clearly number one.
I guess. I think that, but it's not. The list is not who were the best players of this past season. It's the best players in the league, and which is why the entirety of guys' careers are accounted for. Somewhat, we said Joe Burrow, should have motivation, but Burrow also was just based on how you played that year. He wouldn't have been on the list. Rodgers played 4 snaps. He wouldn't have been on the list.
Yep.
And I think it is. I think there has clearly been, Wilds, repeatedly an urge for folks to move past the Patrick Mahomes era as we're just getting into it. There was an urge. Josh Allen's flat. You know what? Josh Allen is better than him. And I don't care that Mahomes won the 13-second game coming off that season because Mahomes then lost the next week and played poorly in that game. It was Josh Allen is QB1. That was not a fringe opinion. It might not have been the majority opinion, but it was a significant opinion. Sure. Then it was, Burrowhead and Joe Burrow. That's the team to beat. And now in the moment, it was Lamar. And that's why I brought up the underdog piece of it. It's not a straw man win. Patrick Mahomes, they were the underdogs when the line opened for a home playoff game against Cincinnati when he was hurt. He then won that game. They were the underdogs to Philly. Then they beat Miami when they were the favorites. They were the underdogs to Buffalo. They were the underdogs to Baltimore. They were the underdogs in the Super Bowl. Like that. That's 4 of your last 5 playoff games, 5 of 6 if you include the home game against Cincinnati, where you've been underdogs.
July 29th, 2020, the last NFL 100 list where Mahomes was ranked number 4. It went Lamar, Russ, Aaron Donald, and then Mahomes. And then in September of that same year.
Russell Wilson?
Yeah, Russell Wilson.
Number 2?
Russell Wilson was number 2. It'd be stranger if it was Russell Westbrook, but yeah, it was Russell Wilson. So then in September, after this list came out, he counts to 4 after throwing his 4th touchdown, and that was against the Ravens. So now we're kind of set up for history to repeat itself. You know what? I am going to do it. It's August. Early hot take. 4 touchdowns. Opening night.
Mahomes against Baltimore.
Yes. That's where that would follow the same path. He was ranked number 4. Lamar was ranked number 1. The first time he got to play the Ravens, he threw 4 touchdowns and started counting on his fingers. I would say the same thing is going to happen. You heard it here first. An early Punxsutawney Phil football take.
Okay, I like a good take.
Friend.
Are you still Punxsutawney Phil football after your disastrous upset alert last year?
Oh, it didn't snow, so are we not doing it? Are we canceling Gobbler's Knob the next year?
I don't know what you're
You don't know what Gobbler's Knob is?
No, I don't.
He doesn't know what Gobbler's Knob is. It's where Punxsutawney Phil lives.